It's the Dev Friday Show with Mark and Tim.
Wait, is it too loud, Mark? Is it too loud? Oh boy, I'm sorry. I don't know what to do now. I guess I can turn that down a little bit there. Yeah, there we go. Is that better?
Well, woke me up.
It woke you up. Yeah, well, that's the thing, huh? I don't even. My volume's not even high. Is it? I got. We got. It's. I don't know. It's a Friday. It's a Friday. It's Mark learned just recently. The mute button I have doesn't really mute me, does it, Mark? It just suppresses the volume a little bit because you can still hear me. Yeah. Anyway, it's been a couple Fridays, hasn't it?
Has been. That's what you should do. Jeez, I can't even hear myself over this bumper music.
Really? Is that? I don't know. Okay, I'll just turn it down. I don't know what's going on here. I don't think there's anything different than there used to be. So all right.
You know, I love always. I make a joke about how the more we do the show, the worse we get.
Well, it
seems like there's always something.
The funniest things are the truest things. Isn't that what they say, or something like that? Man. Am I too loud, or is it? It's just the bumper music. Okay,
I can handle you. It's the bumper music always.
All right.
Just makes you go deaf.
Oh, so many things. Well, you're just asking me if I had a bunch of meetings today, weren't you?
Yeah. How's your day going? How's your day lining up here?
Well, after this, I got to go pick up. I got to go pick up an RV.
Ooh.
Because I think we talked about that last time a little bit, right? That I used ChatGPT to contact all the RV dealerships in the area.
So you are buying an RV, or are you just renting an RV for a trip?
Buying one.
Wow.
Renting's interesting. Have you ever looked at renting an RV?
I actually interesting. When I was working at the college, I had a student who one of his projects was to do an app for RV rentals because his father, he had a friend who owned an RV dealership, and so he was like inspired by that, and so it was a kind of interesting kind of idea. And so he did some research on like different. There are a couple startups that do this. Like
there are. So a couple locally too.
Your experience with that?
Well, I mean, if you look up renting an RV, it's generally speaking, it's quite costly. Like it's not like buying a new RV costly, but it's like enough that you really look hard at a used RV. Because in fact, the first RV that we bought, we were looking at going on a trip all the way out to Colorado for a friend's wedding, and so that's not a week trip, right? Like if you're driving all the way to Colorado with an RV. And at that time, I don't know, we had 6, 7 kids, something like that. Probably, I think 6 kids and a dog.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, you're not doing that in 2 days. So it took us about a week to get out there. We were there for about a week, and it took us about a week to get back, stopping at different places. We stopped at in the Dakotas. We saw Mount Rushmore, all that kind of fun stuff. We broke down in the Dakotas. I had to replace the fuel pump in the van twice. So it was an adventure. But anyway, before taking that adventure, looking at what it would cost to rent an RV for like just 3 weeks was, I want to say it was like $4,000, something like that. And at that point,
wow,
three or $4 grand, something like that. Because it's about $1,000 a week to rent an RV, roughly speaking, like a tow behind trailer. And at that point, it's like we were looking around and I can find a used one for almost that same price. So, I mean, not a great one, but a used one. And that's what we did. We found a used one right in that price point around $4,000, which was, I mean, it was enough to let us see what RVing was like. Right. And then as we had more kids, we ran out of space. So we got rid of that RV a couple months ago, 2-3 months ago. And then my wife and I were talking, and there was something that she wanted to do. And we were poking around and seeing where this would happen, where this event would be. And it's like, oh, we could, if we had an RV, we could go out and we could camp out and we could do the thing that we want to do. And so we started looking again. And I think I said last week I had a ChatGPT operator, which, let's face it, I think everybody knows, you and me, we like AI, but we understand its limits, right? And I don't think we're AI hype men. Operator it's an interesting concept. It is not there yet. But it's where it launches a virtual machine and allows you to take control of it. So you can log in, you can do some things, and then you ask it to do some things.
Yeah. Which is a really cool idea.
It is. It's just like, okay. Because I said, hey, I like this specific, because we were out looking at different RVs, just trying to get a lay of the land. And we found one that had 6 bunks, which is not normal for RVs. If you know, like the layout of RVs, they don't usually have that many bunks. They'll say they'll sleep 10, but when they mean sleep 10, they mean you're you're pulling the couch out and you're converting the kitchen table into a bed, and that's how you pull off that number. But to have one that had 6 bunks, I was like, this is cool, because then everybody almost has their own bed, and that's a really good thing for a family our size. But it was there's not many models that have that. You look around, you can't find many. So I was trying to find other places, like give me some comparative, other models to compare to, because nobody else has this many beds. So I said to ChatGPT operator, I like this model RV, and I don't even know if I tried to get it to do deep research and find other RVs that were similar to it, because the problem is the stats that you can kind of ingest as like in a crawl search type way tells you how many it sleeps, and that's not relevant to what I'm asking. Mm-hmm. I'm asking, like, how many beds do you actually have? Not ones that you can make, but like how many are, beds that you say, oh yeah, it's not like I'm sleeping in the thing. Because that was the problem with the RV. Once we got to the size family we were, and even before that, you were basically sleeping in the hallway if you were kids, right? Like there was a bunk that was just carved out as part of the, as you go down the RV back to the bathroom. And then we'd have to, every morning, it's like, okay, everybody make your beds and put them all away so we can have a kitchen area again. So the idea of having a layout where there's an actual bunk room that has enough bunks that most everybody can sleep there was really interesting. But the RV stats don't pull that out. They're just like, we sleep 10, we sleep 8, but nobody's like, hey, this is how many bunks. So it's like, I really need to talk to people that are selling RVs and say, hey, I like this floor plan. Do you have anything that's comparable to this? So instead of me doing that, I said, all right, this is a great use case for ChatGPT operator, because I decided I'd splurge and buy 1 month of their premium or pro or whatever, plus,
which is how much?
Pro. It's $200 a month, man.
$200.
It was.
Wow.
I also did it before deep research was generally available, because I really wanted to see. I saw some results from deep research, and if you're ChatGPT Plus, whatever the $20 a month is,
you have that now.
You have deep research. Deep research is really good, because deep research uses the reflection concepts, where it kind of self-prompts itself. It's like, oh, if I was going to do this, I would ask these type of questions. And then it uses tools to go out and do it. So it'll search, and it's great. I asked it some questions specifically around how to do things with AWS, and you could see it reading blog posts and reading AWS's docs. And it was, to me, this was the fascinating, the useful thing. And we can go on about how people think AI does stuff that AI doesn't do. And there was this one tweet, I don't know if you've seen it, but this guy, he's like, guys, I built my entire app using Cursor. And because you've seen Cursor now, right?
I was going to talk about it, because I was
we should this week. We should talk about that. So we'll come back to that one. Yeah. So what AI is not useful for, but this was great because it read all these blog posts and docs and examples and quick start guides, and then it distilled it down to exactly the context I was asking about. Because I'm asking about, like, how would I do this with, whether it's SQS and then I also need Lambda functions, and we're going to call it from this type of app. And I gave it that context so it could take them and basically it did the adjustment for my context. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to read all these blog posts and go, okay, I see what you're talking about with SAM. I think I was asking questions about SAM. And which is, what is that? The serverless application model. Yeah. And how to use that. And instead of me having to read all those docs and then go, okay, now I can take that information and I can apply it to my context, it gave me pretty much a quick start guide for my context. It's like, that's beautiful. That's exactly, that is what these tools will excel at. So I really wanted to play with deep research before it was generally accessible or generally available. And that's why I was like, I can justify the business expense of $200 for 1 month. Can't do it for more than that, because it doesn't give me that value yet, right?
Yeah.
Some people it does. Hefty. I'm sure. I'm sure some people it does.
Yeah.
But then I was like, all right, I also want to see how operator works. So I said to operator, go out, find all the RV dealerships that are within like 50 miles of me. Go to their page, find the contact form, and tell them that I like this model. It has 6 bunks. That's what I like about it. Do they have anything similar? Because I'd like to compare. It did okay. Some places it could contact, some places it was funny. At one point, it got into a chat discussion with a chatbot. So it was one of those
and you're watching all this happen, right? Is it
half watching
like
it?
Like a VNC kind of virtual desktop? You can kind of watch 100%. Everything that's going on. So that's interesting. Wow.
Yeah, you just got a browser there, and I can see it clicking around and doing its thing. And occasionally, it's like, hey, can you help me out here? So I take over and I solve a problem for it. I like do a thing and it asks, so what did you solve? And I'm like, oh, I saw, well, if it was like a CAPTCHA, it's like I solved the CAPTCHA for you to get through. And I had to tell it, I'd be like, because it was going back and forth with the other chatbot. The other chatbot's just wanting to give it links because it thinks it's a person. And mine is just saying, I want to, to basically send a message. So I had to like kind of jump in. And that's what's interesting too about Operator. It keeps working and you can just talk to it. So unlike your normal chat interface where you're waiting for it to render the response before you respond, I was able just to say, hey, just ask them to have someone contact me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, here's my contact information. Yes, you can give that contact information. So it did that. Long story, made even longer because I feel like that's how this story is going. It sent about around a bunch of messages. I got a bunch of emails back, and the answer is pretty much no. Like that concept, that floor plan is very unique. In fact, the manufacturer I saw, it was a 2025 model. Their 2024 model didn't have that floor plan. So it's like, nobody has this. It's like, okay, too bad. Kept looking, was probably going to go back and see if we wanted to get a new one. The day before we were going to go back, got an email from a local place that I wouldn't even honestly have thought to contact because it's just this little parking lot that has a couple RVs. And he's like, oh, I just got one and you might be interested in. Has 6 bunks, 2 slide outs in the bunkhouse. Is perfect. And it was crazy because like, would I have contacted him? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I would have thought of, but it was something that Operator somewhat did for me. I had to help it out more than I think I would want to. But yeah, out of that, found a good deal on a used RV, which is right where you want to be because RVs lose so much value just as soon as you buy them. It's more, I think it's more than even a car, buying a new car off the lot. So getting a good used and a used one in good condition is usually your best bet. So you're asking what my day is today. After this, I'm going to go pick it up.
There you go.
So we got it a couple of weeks ago and had them do some.
So you're going to be
upgrades
spending some time setting it up and then planning a trip, or when's your first trip that you guys are going to be taking it out?
First trip that we have planned is just down to Lancaster. Mm-hmm. We're going to take the kids to Dutch Wonderland, and they're going to enjoy a couple of days there. They've got a campground right outside of it. It's actually it's like, I don't know, maybe it's 2 different organizations, but it's the same. It's the same property. So we're going to spend a couple of days down there, and then later on. Later this summer, we're going all the way out to Kentucky to Ark Encounter, and they do some concerts there. So we're gonna go do that. That'll be the big trip. May try to get up to Knoebels sometime too. Haven't done that one yet with.
I've been up there in a while.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's what my day looks like. Plenty of meetings too. And believe it or not, I have a Raspberry Pi sitting on my desk, and I've been writing Python to do stuff on Raspberry Pis right now to control phones. It's
to control phones.
To control phones, yeah, using the Android debug bridge.
Is this
automate some stuff?
Is this a Phone Gap Skunkworks project?
No.
Like some secret product that you're doing some prototyping on.
No, we're just doing automation. So we have to take some operations on a phone every once in a while, and I'm able to automate that by using Android debug bridge. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool what I'm playing with right now, but yeah, writing Python code on the Raspberry Pi.
You're like a little like Steve Wozniak for Phone Gap there. Just hacking on phones, just like building.
Oh wait, was Steve Wozniak like the guy that you'd be like, I don't know what he's working on, but it's going to be interesting, I'm sure.
Well, him and Steve Jobs, got made famous or locally famous by their blue boxes. Was it blue boxes with the phone hacking that they did?
Oh, did they? I don't remember that one.
And and Steve Wozniak actually had like an automated kind of like a voicemail thing for like telling jokes or some stuff like that. I don't know.
Back in the day when programming on phones was
because he loved hacking on phones. So that's what makes me feel like you're like a Steve Wozniak.
Phones are very interesting. This is less hacking. Actually, be honest with you, some of the stuff that we can do, I don't even think I need the phone for. So I've got a GSM modem coming, and I think I can actually just do it with AT commands.
Wow.
I know, right?
They still make modems, huh?
They do, because sometimes you need, think of it from the IoT side of things, right? What if I need just data and I need to put it on a device someplace, or not just data? What if I actually need audio, but stream not to a person, but stream to a device? say it's some audio, like a phone conference solution, and we want to say, here's a phone number you can call in, like, with a fancy smart conference rooms, like,
Yeah.
oh, what's the room's number? Unless you're going to somehow plug a phone line or actually even a phone line, you do the same thing. Yeah, so you could either plug a phone line in, give it a network connection, and have it use SIP, or if you wanted this thing to be like a Polycom device that you just could set on the desk and it just work, you throw a SIM card in there, and you get what is essentially a modem, because you don't need the UI for it. You just need to say, I need to know, tell me the signaling that's coming in. Is phone ringing? Okay, then I'm going to do something. I'm going to take it off hook, and I'm going to connect the audio channel. So
Wait,
yeah,
so the
hardware that
modem,
does.
so the modem is wireless? Because you said you're plugging a SIM card into it.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
gonna
Got it.
it's gonna be basically a cellular modem.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah.
sense.
So when you say modem, it's like there's still modems.
I think you were plugging you're plugging into like a hard line.
No. I mean, I think they still do. I think make modems. I don't know why you would use them when you could just.
That's why I was like, I thought that was so fascinating when you said you're working.
Yeah,
modems.
no. It's the same, but it's the same concept, because you still control those things with, like, do you remember AT commands back from?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You use AT commands to control them still, and you use I think you still use AT commands if you want to even do stuff like send an SMS over a SIM card programmatically.
That makes sense. Now I get it. If it's a cellular modem that you could programmatically do things with, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. And I had an old shield that went on top of an Arduino, and I was just trying to test to see if it still worked, and it apparently does not. Turns out that whatever hardware used to accept SIM cards 10 years ago, apparently SIM cards have changed. And it doesn't recognize my SIM card. I have a very old SIM card, and it was like, this SIM card's great. Also, the network won't let you join. And I was like, well, yeah, because this line has not been active for 10 years. I put in a live SIM card, and it's like, no, I don't even know what this thing is. So guess that hardware is a little dated, but no, I've been doing a bunch of crazy stuff. It's been interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
Say the least. So.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're having fun. While you are hacking on hardware,
what are you doing?
I'm building out APIs, which is kind of interesting how I basically become an API guy like you. So that's what I've been spending most of my time on, building APIs for an integration, do some data pipeline work for moving some data and transforming it. But most of the interesting work I've been doing actually building on APIs, which has actually been kind of fun.
Yeah, actually, I do have a meeting today about the potential of a new API product for us. So that I've put together a little bit of a how we would build it, how it would operate concept. Yeah. It was interesting too, because I had to think about a couple things there. Do you have to do a lot of webhooks? Like notifications to your consumers?
Not in phase one. Phase one is basically just building out the read-only API endpoints, so that we can just, build out the authentication, bearer token, OAuth 2 authentication.
You using API Gateway for that?
Yep.
Awesome.
So using Cognito for the OAuth bearer token generation, and then passing that off to API Gateway, which is nice. They work very, very nicely together. Yeah. And then it's basically just building out, 5 or so read-only API endpoints for the first integration, and then the second phase of the integration will be receiving data back. So
walk me through your Cognito, because I'm familiar enough with Cognito to understand the flow of you sign in with Cognito. Cognito gives you an authorization token, which is basically a JWT.
Yep.
That then you can use to call API Gateway endpoints.
Yep.
But you're building what I understood to be an API for your partners.
Yeah.
How are they getting a key?
Well, we pass them the client ID and the client secret that gets generated by Cognito.
Oh, so okay. So
they're the only ones that have it. So so it's a partner, like a singular partner that we're integrating with, and we're building API just for them. Then we basically just give them the ID and the secret for different environments, and then they're the only ones that have it.
Okay, so what your partner is having people OAuth with Cognito, which is your app, to come back to them, and then they have to. Okay. So I understand that flow. I thought this was like, how are they getting their own data? Because that's something I've not explored with API Gateway yet. Like if you want to create just say server to server keys. Like
I'm not sure about that.
I'm sure you can. I've not played with that yet. Like how you do that and say, oh, this account has these keys.
Yeah, I've not done that yet.
So. Yeah. All right. Well, web. I was looking at webhooks for ours because like the thing that I'm working on, without tipping my hat as to too much of what it is, we want it to be really simple to integrate. So like say a JavaScript SDK that would wrap a bunch of REST APIs. So you could use the REST APIs if you wanted, if you're building something more complex, but a very simplistic JavaScript SDK. So you could almost do, or perhaps do, all of the integration directly in a browser and not even have to worry about API. It could be like a client side integration where you just drop this SDK in and you just call functions or methods on it.
Yeah, I got
But
you.
then I had to say, well, not only are we going to do webhooks, but we would have to do like an event stream, like server-side events. And have you played with those yet?
I know what you mean, but I have not.
Yeah, I've not had a chance to really play with them, but the concept is great because it's just you leave a connection open and you just push events down, and seems pretty simple, honestly. And then from the client side, you just subscribe to this event stream and you just get events as they come in. It's like, well, that's pretty much a webhook. So if we did our webhooks also as an event stream, now you could either have a client-side integration that listens to events, or you could have more of a server-to-server integration where you listen to webhooks to know to do something. So
is that, and I'm curious, but like I said, I've heard of this. I've never done anything with this before, so I'm going to sound very like a neophyte when it comes to this. Is that for this web stream, the way you're describing it, is this an HTTP3 protocol, or is it is it a protocol that is adopted between servers, or is it kind of server specific and how it's implemented?
I don't know.
Because I didn't know if it's a new protocol that I was like, that's kind of built in, and then the server has to like adopt that the pattern. To make sure it's compatible.
I have a feeling that it is either HTTP 2 or 3. Like I don't know which, but I'm let's see. Okay. When not used over HTTP 2, server-side event suffers from a limitation to the maximum number of open connections. So yes. So I think it's a HTTP 2, not concept, but it's HTTP 2 makes it something that is much more useful, much more sustainable, much more easy to do. Because you're essentially just saying, I have the expectation that this HTTP connection is not going to go away. Right? Like it's held open on purpose, and I am intending to ingest data periodically, and I forget what the format is, but there's something that says, hey, I sent you the event. I don't know if it's just 2 new lines or something like that, but however you would format it, there's a way to say that was an event. And then the browser goes, oh, send that payload to whatever listener we have that's listening to these events, and keep the connection open, as opposed to normal connections where, I mean, if you did it in a not HTTP 2 context, I'm guessing your browser may think that it's not even done loading the page. Like one of those, wait, this thing doesn't seem to be stopping loading because it's not. It has an open HTTP connection. But I think HTTP 2 allowed us to normalize some contexts where it's like, it's okay to have an open HTTP connection.
Yes, the last time I played with something like that was like WebSockets, right?
Yeah, I think this is I believe the concept here was to make that more accessible.
Yeah, because WebSockets wasn't, I would say it was impossible, but definitely was not the easiest to implement. But it was interesting, like if you want to maintain a connection.
And unlike WebSockets, I think WebSockets are bidirectional, right?
Yeah, it's mostly used for chat, right?
Right. So this is not bidirectional.
Yeah.
It's just, I will get new events from the server. But honestly, I mean, web browsers can make, like, web servers are really good at handling inbound requests. So for the browser to server connection, just make an HTTP request. The problem is, like, the server can't reach the browser. There needs to be an open connection for that to happen. And I think that's what server-side events was trying to solve more simplistically than WebSockets. It's at least simplistically enough that I can kind of wrap my head around it without knowing anything about it, apparently, other than the concepts. But yeah.
Well, unfortunately, with all these AI tools, we can definitely generate all the code that needs to
yes,
all the boilerplate code that we need to do.
I gotta find this. I shared this with the team the other day because, yeah, like things like Cursor, things like Copilot, things like
Mhm.
JetBrains AI Assistant, they can be very useful.
Mhm.
But the reality is they are just, that's the wrong way to say it. I mean, they're not just autocomplete, but it's that type of tool. It's like the next
Yeah,
evolution of
it is.
let me guess what I think you need based on the context around you. Like, it's not going to replace your developer, or if you're replaced by it, you weren't a great developer. You
Yeah.
know, like, so here's I
Yes.
saw 2 tweets back to back. You ready for these? It was somebody sharing this. And when I say back to back, they were separated by 2 days, March 15th and March 17th. So just recently, and I could probably look up to see if this was legit. I think it is. First tweet: my SaaS was built with Cursor, 0 handwritten code. AI is no longer just an assistant. It's also the builder. Now you can continue to whine about it or start building. P.S. Yes, people pay for it. So that's on the 15th. On the 17th, guys,
That's what's going.
I'm under attack. Ever since I started to share how I built my SaaS using Cursor, random things are happening. Maxed out usage on API keys, people bypassing the subscription, creating random stuff on the DB. As you know, I'm not technical, so this is taking me longer than usual to figure out. For now, I will stop sharing what I do publicly on X. There are just some weird people out there.
This sounds like this makes like a great like tech sitcom. Like, oh my gosh, it is. Well, that was kind of like let's back up to where.
Oh yeah, I never watched Silicon Valley, but I can
Oh, that was
only
great.
guess
Yeah,
as to what Silicon
they
Valley
should
would do
really
with AI now.
Yeah, that's a great show. They should really restart that show in the context of AI now. They should do like a whole other, because it ended, but they should just reboot it and just do it with AI. It'd be funnier.
Should they just have it written by AI?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. But let's back up, because it was interesting. Like you suggested, I think it wasn't last week, because we don't do this every week, because I barely get out of bed on Fridays. But so you suggested in the last show about Cursor. I don't know how you brought it up, but you brought it up.
So I saw the context here, and I don't know if I shared this on the show or if I shared a couple of discussions. There are some of those things out there, like, oh, what was it? I don't know. I think it had love something in. I forget. It was a weird domain, but it was AI that you just kind of give it your app idea and it builds it and puts it on. What's your Supabase?
Supabase,
yeah. It just kind of builds it just for you, and those apps seem to be targeting the entrepreneur who's always going, "Hey, I've got this idea. Can you build it for me?" They seem to be trying to say, "We'll build this prototype for you."
And Supabase, but just being a platform for your database. Also,
yeah, just like Firebase.
It provides like an API layer to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're doing storage yet, but just it's a very kind of Firebase-like kind of platform. But for CRUD style applications that are kind of relatively basic, it's perfect for if you need to host. You need to spin up something real quick.
So there's apps out there for that, like rapid prototyping. But Cursor, I saw actual developers talking about it that I know.
It is the hot topic.
And they were saying things like I spun up, and I'm gonna paraphrase this, but like spun up a really simple, say, Laravel user CRUD style app, like your standard Laravel CRUD app, and it's like, yeah, it probably took me, I don't know, a couple hours to do what would take me a day, just as the tedious, like, because I know my data model, but it's unique to me. So it's like, yes, I've got to create this structure. I've got to set all the, it's pretty much boilerplate code. And Cursor was able to kind of crank that out really fast. So that kind of intrigued me, because these are what I see as senior developers saying, hey, this tool actually made something easy. They weren't the, I'm an entrepreneur and this tool is replacing, now I don't have to hire a developer. These are actual like senior developers going, I whipped up something pretty quick. And it took a lot of the tedium out of it for me. And the fact that Cursor, from what I was understanding, looks at all your files. And to date, my understanding about both JetBrains AI and GitHub Copilot, they look at contextually, like what files you may have open. But they don't do a deep dig into, let me look at all your repo and try to use that as context to tell what you should do next, which to me seems useful, because I've asked AI assistant, like, hey, create create the files that are needed for a new API endpoint, and it'll spit out things for like, well, this is how you do it in Symfony. This is how you do it in Laravel. I'm like, no, look at how we do it here. You can see the pattern, right?
Yeah.
And since that's what it is, it's pattern matching. It should be able to. It just doesn't know how to kind of crawl your own code base, and Cursor seems to do that. So it really intrigued me. But you downloaded it, right?
Yeah, I downloaded it, and because I was fighting against it, because like the whole building an IDE or text or an editor around that's basically built around AI. I don't know, that idea just seems like it just scared me. Just the concept of it. I don't know, because I've had some bad experience with AI. Just like generating bad code and just creating problems I had to go in and fix, and just like, I don't know, just it felt like it was taking too much time for me to solve problems. Like when you're just researching, ChatGPT, and kind of just trying to learn a framework or library and just trying to or figure out how to integrate with systems. I think it's great as like a knowledge base and kind of learning, kind of getting you kickstarted, kind of working towards something. But having the ID built, or having the AI built into your ID, always just feel like it was always, I don't know, wasn't really that good for me. I don't know. Like I turned off the AI tools. I was just using pretty much, my NeoVim TMX Tim, of course, with my linting tools, which I, basically does most of the work that I need for.
But hadn't you added Q back to it?
Well, that's what I was going to say, where it's once, since the last reInvent, Amazon did improve Amazon Q, and my boss was like, you should really give it a second look, because he went out to reInvent.
Oh,
he
really?
Saw the presentations.
All right.
And he's like, you should really take a second look at it, because he knew I was kind of like fighting against it. I was like, I like AI. I like using it for certain use cases, but just like using them day to day with. Also, I was talking with the AWS guys too when they were still here about that, because they're all about using Amazon Q, and I was like, man, I've tried Amazon Q, I'm very disappointed. I'm just pushing against it. So then I tried it again. Okay, I reinstalled it back in Visual Studio, and then I was like, oh, it actually started to build some context. Like as I was editing files, it was keeping track of the files I had opened, and also the files I referenced as we're kind of in the chat talking about different files and different things you want to do within files. And it was actually providing better suggestions or recommendations based on the files I had open. So it was building better context, which that's always been my biggest issue with AI and code generation, is that if you don't have a good context around your repository,
you start generating stuff that makes no sense.
Yeah, it just creates like more code that you have to maintain, and just, I don't know, it just felt just not right. So I know that then it got me started to think about using AI again. So I was actually using Amazon Q for a while, and then you suggested then, and then I would still go back and forth between just using my terminal editor and going back between Visual Studio to Amazon Q, and kind of go back and forth. But you suggested Cursor.
And you said you're using Visual Studio.
I'm sorry, Visual Studio Code.
Okay,
VS Code. VS
okay.
Code.
Yeah,
sorry,
right.
sorry. VS
no, that's fine. Yeah,
I know people just maybe even just assume it's just code. I don't know. That's what the editor. I don't know. VS Code. Yeah.
Does anybody use Visual Studio anymore?
I don't know, because I'm old school. So I'm thinking my VS stands for Visual Studio. So that's what I'm thinking about going back in the days.
Yeah.
Which honestly, and I've talked about this before.
IntelliSense was great.
You mentioned IntelliSense, and basically AI is the next version of IntelliSense. And when I first saw IntelliSense inside of Visual Studio Code, I was blown away.
So nice.
It
was
worked
so nice,
especially when you were trying to learn the .NET framework. Like it was the best tool, because it would enable you with its autocompletes. Also, it provided a little bit of documentation behind the autocompletes that it enabled you to learn a framework. And I think that was the best use of IntelliSense for me. So if I need to kind of just start working with a framework, but I don't want to read a ton of documentation, I just want to start working with it and have, as I'm typing and referencing an object, but I don't know all the methods that belong to that object, it can just show me these are the options, and then give me a little documentation around that. That was great.
That just made me think. Like as we think about like developers now, who if you're just starting out as like as a junior developer out of college or wherever, and the context that you have, like you've never been in a world where people weren't making mobile apps. Whereas you and I were like, that's like the idea that an app runs on a device in your pocket is novel. There was a time when it wasn't that. I just thought when you're talking about IntelliSense, I don't think I have ever worked, quote unquote, in a professional language that didn't have IntelliSense.
Interesting.
Because the first, like when I was 13, I got a copy of Visual Basic from my uncle who was a programmer, and it was like VB4 or something like that. And the IDE had IntelliSense, or a rudimentary version of it, right? So I've never, so that's like my reflection on this. The programmers that came before us would be like, yeah, I used to like, we program, and I know I've also programmed without it because I've done it in text editors and things like that.
That's what I was gonna say.
But like, no, there was a time when you weren't going, oh man, I wish I was in my IDE, or I wish I had this configured even in, because you have it in your Emacs, right?
Well, just like just a little bit of linting, just like your lints.
Oh, you don't have like an autocomplete, or because
that's basically what your linting is. It'll give you autocompletes basically, because the linting will look at the libraries that you're importing, and then it'll give you basically an autocomplete with that.
So, or even in a text editor, you have it there. But it's like, no, back in the day, I'd have to remember.
I'm sorry, or not linting is not the right word, because linting is basically for syntax. But like your language server, that the linting is runs on the language server generates the autocompletes for that.
So like, it's like I can't even wrap my mind around programming. Like, I know I've done it without that, but I've always known those tools existed.
Yeah. So using cursor then, so like, all right, you suggested cursor during the last show, and it's like, all right, let me try this, because I'm curious myself. I looked it up. I was like, all right, I looked up a couple of YouTubes of people talking about it, and because I was just trying to avoid it altogether. It's like, I don't know. And then I tried it, and then I realized, oh, it's basically just VS Code. They basically forked VS Code for cursor or something like that. And I was like, okay, that's familiar. And also, it was super, super slick, where it imported all of my extensions, all of my configurations, my color scheme. Basically,
it just felt like home, huh?
Yeah, especially when I logged in like GitHub, which I store all the settings. Like everything just kind of seemed like it just worked, right? Basically, just using Visual Studio, but like I'm sorry, I keep saying Visual Studio.
I know, right?
VS Code. It felt normal, and they configure, and it also the way they tweaked the UI a little bit. And I actually kind of like some of the improvements they did, and actually from a performance standpoint too, I think they might have improved it too. So I think it's actually a better version of VS Code.
Really?
It feels like that to me. I don't know. I've only been using it really for a week and a half, like kind of heavy. But it's definitely it's a good editor. I think they've done a good job with it. Then the editing capabilities. The one thing I didn't realize about it though, because going back to context, was that you could talk about how you can choose to scan your repository, scan a whole folder of repositories, which that's what I initially did. Once I make sure when I installed it, I made sure I turn on the privacy setting, because they do have that when you install the application. Say, okay, if you don't want your code uploaded to our servers, stored on they didn't say not uploaded, but stored on our servers.
Stored, because
of course they have to upload code snippets of parts of code for the server to do the analysis on, right? So that has to be transferring parts of your code, but not storing it permanently or using as their base or for their learning. You could check the privacy to make sure that they don't do that, which who knows if they're really not doing that. I don't know. But so I checked that, and I said, okay, but I have my one directory that has all of my repositories in it. I just want to scan the whole thing. Actually didn't take too long to scan, maybe like 10-15 minutes or something like that. And then it was done. And then what I started losing to as I was starting to use it, you could actually control the context even more too. Like based on the question you're asking, you say, okay, this question pertains to this folder or these set of files. And you can make a list of contextual kind of points that you want to your question or problem you're trying to solve can work around. And I was really impressed with that, because then it kind of really started to look deep within the repository that I was using. And then it gave me some good suggestions. And then what it really blew me away with, and also I like how the UI is really slick, how it does the diffing. So you can see like, because when you do like Copilot with the chat or even with the autocomplete, it's always kind of, I don't know, it was always kind of hacky. They have a really slick interface by showing you the diff of showing you this is the current line, this is the line they're suggesting, and then you can kind of pick and choose, and you can kind of read to see. So there might be times you want to reject it, or you could just go through and accept it. And so I thought that interface of seeing the highlights within the lines was pretty cool. But then one thing that blew me away a couple times was the fact that when I finished. For one of my API endpoints, I pretty much finished it. But all the code, using the MVC style, structured to the application, I had pretty much everything in the controller, right? So Tim, you can't have any fat controllers, right? Because
cannot do it. Cannot do it.
So I was like, all right, this is time for refactoring. I pretty much have this done. It's functional, but I need to clean up the code a little bit. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna break this out to a model. So I have all of my SQL code and all the database logic that's all in this controller. I want to push it out to a model. Right. So I'm just going to ask the AI to do it. I'm just like, okay. So I'm going to select these lines that have, between this line number, this line, and this basically has all the code that I want to take out and to abstract into a data model. And then it did it. It created the file. It moved the code. it put it in the right place or in the right folder I wanted to do.
So was that refactor move more than what like a JetBrains would help? Because I know like you can grab a bunch of code and tell JetBrains, hey, extract this out into another thing, and it'll be like, well, let me see all the variables that come before this code, and I will make them the arguments to the method, and I'll stick it in a method, and I'll be done.
Yeah.
Was it more complex than that? Like more complex?
It was exactly what you just described. It
Right.
made all those connections, but it's just the fact that it created the file. I didn't have to say
Okay.
file new, create the file, say put in this file. It structured the whole file just based on what I expected. And then so it did the one model file. Then say, oh, there's some code in this. Like
when you're saying a model file, I feel like that's more than just extracting out to a method. Did it like extract it out to a class, more complex object?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't just like this code isolated in a method. It was isolate the concepts. Ah, that's fascinating.
And then I was like, so to create the first model, I was like, really, okay, for these other API endpoints, I'm going to be using different models. I need to abstract this even more. I want to have a base model because I have like the authentication, the configuration, like for all the models, like, for the database and everything like that. And I was like, okay, I want to also some test methods I have to like test the database connection. Like all this should really be in a base model that then I could then implement in the other models. So I asked to do that. I was like, okay, take this block of code, create a base model from it. And then it did that too. Created the file, made the link and the imports for everything. And it was perfect. So now when I say perfect too, I had to go back and verify and kind of, make sure that it was doing it correctly. But I was super, super impressed because all that stuff that I was just describing is really just tedious manual work, doing a lot of cutting and pasting, creating files, moving it, all that stuff I knew how to do. I could have done it by myself, could took me maybe like an hour or so or less, but it just did it in like 5 minutes or less, by me going through and just verifying all the changes it was making. But so I was pretty impressed with that.
It's that step too, because you're looking at it and you're like, you are solving the problem. Like you're looking at it and saying, hey, there's too much code here. This needs to be abstracted.
Yeah.
And those steps of abstracting that code out they're not that unknown. It's
not rocket science. It's like,
right.
We've done it a bunch of times, but it's like, it's very tedious to do that.
But now I have to do it. But so to me, like the work of programming is the recognition that there's too much code here. This should be abstracted out. And it should be, like you said, like you had two different levels, like where you abstracted it once and said, no, this should be even more abstract. And like making those design decisions to me is the thing that is important, right?
Yeah.
Because then like that's what I'm trying to say is like that's the programming part. And the fact that then you're looking at the work and saying, oh yeah, you did it right. And not just blindly being like, well, I told it to create a user and look, somehow it works. Which is the opposite, which was the tweet that I was referencing before, where it's like, oh, I built this service. Well, you didn't really build it. It's somehow running, but it's kind of a happy accident there that it's running the way that it is because you don't even know what's going on. But it being a tool to help get rid of that tedium, and then the developer being the one that says, yep, this thing should be extracted out. I've built this version of it, but here's how we should clean it up. Those steps are far more well known. Yeah, that's great. So are you switching to it?
Well, I still use my Tmux, Tim, and many of them. Of course you do. All right. So especially if I'm with the command line, do my git commands and occasionally hopping into Vim and doing like a grep search. Yeah, come on, got to be doing it there. But for probably, I would say maybe 80%, like an 80-20 or something like that. Probably 80%. Yeah, I'm spending more time in Cursor now because, like I said, I think it's a real slick editor. I think it's a good balance too with the AI. If you don't want to use the AI, you don't have to.
Okay. Is it really just VS Code?
It's basically just VS Code. That's the simplistic thing about it. So if you don't really want to use the AI, you don't have to, but it's just there. And then when you do want to use it, it's integrated very, very nicely. And so I could see why everybody is talking about it. But one more thing I'm going to talk about before we talk about the pros and cons of using this for younger developers.
Oh, okay.
Is that the other thing that blew me away?
Yeah.
I had to do something where I had to do a mapping for for phone types. You probably like this because of
Okay.
different types of phones. So let's say if you have like a home work cellular phone.
Oh, just like an enum of what the label is?
Different types of phones, right? So we had a mapping for email addresses, right? So we had like codes that correspond to this code means this type for this email, and it basically just one big JSON config for all these different configuration types that get mapped to different values for different for email types. So I had this JSON file, this JSON object. This was pretty complex for emails, and like we had to map a new object for phones, but it was very, very similar, basically phone codes that were coming in, like different letters and numbers that represent different types of phone types.
And this is wait, I just want to understand this. You're getting this data from another service or something?
Yes. So this
has these.
So this is basically, because I've talked about this before, like I deal with academic data. So we get most of our academic data from another provider. So I could get the
list. They already have these esoteric codes that this thing means home.
I could get a configuration kind of object of saying, okay, these are all the phone types I need to have, but I need to get this into the format that my code base is using. So all I did was I told the AI, okay, here's my email, object. It's very similar. Here's the object coming from the provider. This is the list of emails and all the types. Put it in this new format, and it just did it. And it was like over like 200 lines of configuration. Think about that. If I had to do that by hand and do a lot of copy and pasting or just eyeball it.
You'd try some find replace too, but it would have
took me forever. A lot of mistakes I could have made, and it just did it within a minute.
Because what you're basically saying is take this set of words and understand the relationship between the tokens.
Yep.
And then take this set of words and understand the relationship between the structure and translate it. Which I mean, an LLM is going to probably be very, very good at that.
And I did similar things with ChatGPT, but just the fact it was built into the editor, and once again, it generated the file for me, did everything, put the code in the right place, and I was like, it was so fast and so slick. I was like, wow. That was really, really impressive, because that was another one of those tasks we talk about that I could definitely do by hand. And I was thinking about doing it, but I was like, wait, I have this tool now. Why can't I just copy and paste this example code, the real data that I need to convert, and then have it, and then describe what I need to have it done, and it just did it. So it was pretty sick. But going back to
before we get there, I just have so because you were using Q before and now you're using Cursor. If you had to pick one, would you pick Cursor or Q?
Well, the interesting thing is because Cursor or Q is just an extension of VS Code. I have
both
Q
of them running?
Yeah. So what I do is now I use Q for just general questions about AWS.
Because I'm assuming it's pretty good at that.
But if I'm going to be editing code directly, or I want to kind of have like the inline diffs with the kind of Cursor models that it's using. Also, nice thing too, you can switch between the models. You have some control over that. So if you want to kind of,
I did see that. Yeah, you can do that in JetBrains too.
Yeah, it's a nice feature. So I'm using both, but I'm mostly using just Cursor suggestions, unless there's like an AWS service I don't have no clue about that, or I've never implemented before. So maybe I might ask a question within Q about that. But
all right. So your next question.
So I was demoing something to my coworker. It was actually happened yesterday. I was like kind of showing what I was doing with this API, and then he was totally happy and everything. We were kind of going back and forth. I don't know. We were actually trying to solve another problem that was related to it. And then at the end, he said, "Oh, what do you think about Cursor?" Because he saw me. That's the fact I was editor. I was kind of, as we were doing the screen sharing, what I was using. And he's also big into kind of trying out, testing out AI tools and kind of seeing what was happening. So we had a conversation about it. And he told me he read an article about how the fact that since all these AI code tools have come out, code quality has gone down. And I was like, okay, well, what do you mean by that? He said, well, there was referencing was the fact that most of these AI tools don't do a good job currently of referencing existing code that it could reuse in a repository, or library. So let's say if you have like a method or class,
it tends to write more than it.
Already does a job or is close to what you want to what you want to implement. Then it doesn't recommend that, or doesn't recommend a refactoring that. It basically just writes new code, right? So we have a net new, like the amount of code that we have is more than what we should have, because it's not doing a good job of optimizing.
No, that makes complete sense. Yeah.
But then that makes, after the conversation, made me think about how the fact that, all these AI tools, it's either going to go one way or the other. It's like, either it's going to make developers who can actually read code and understand it. Because like you have to think too, if you're generating this code in your editor and it generates the solution and you read it, you have no idea what it's doing, then you shouldn't be using it.
You just know it kind of works because the output is what you wanted, and you're like, I guess it works. You should
not be using it, right? So it will. So for developers who can read codes, I also realized too. I realized the fact of like, yeah, we can read code, especially if you understand it, so much faster than we can write it. So if we were given a solution, if you can read it, if it makes sense, we would definitely have to test it and verify it. But if it looks and visually makes sense, and the flow works with what you're trying to get to, it'll definitely elevate you, definitely speed you up, because you can definitely read faster than you can type. But then also for like you talk about the younger developers, or even just developers who are just getting into the space for the first time, because these tools become so accessible and easy to use, then it could be an issue where like they're going to be generating a ton of code that eventually they don't know how to support. And there's gonna be the other side. So it feels like it's like this almost this seesaw of which direction AI is going to kind of push, I don't know, developers into. Either it's going to make them more lazy, or it could make them more smart and be able to solve more complex problems faster, because all that tedious code that they would need to write to solve that complex problem, it could accelerate them to that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that whole idea is like, if like you said, if you can't understand what it's doing, that's a problem. That's a problem. So it's like there needs to be a foundation of it, and I'm like a foundational understanding of programming, of the concept of flow control and all that, of functions, of objects, of like, you need to understand how it works. And I don't know that AI is going to, like, the tools that we're talking about, I don't know that they're going to help with that. I mean, other than the fact that you could just ask it.
True.
Like and tools like Cursor, you could say, can you explain this to me?
If you're very intentional about saying you don't understand this, explain it to me and kind of walk through, which I always thought ChatGPT was always very good at that. But
it is, yeah. If you do it.
Yeah.
But if you're working and this is all about, like, this is far less about the tool and more about the context that we put people in. If you're using the tool because you feel the pressure to get stuff done and it's the fastest way to do it, that's probably like, that's not a good context to be in. Mm-hmm. You should be using the tool because, yes, it may make you more productive, but not that without this, like, I feel like, oh, I can't get it done, and I don't have time to stop and figure out what's going on, right? Like that's a bad context to be in, because like I said earlier, I've been writing some Python code, right? I'm not a Python developer, so I have to ask things that a Python developer wouldn't have to ask. I don't know how to do this, but when I see the example, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I get it, like, because I have that contextual understanding of other languages. There's a child now who has wandered up here for some reason, but because I have that understanding, I can see the code it generates and go, oh, that'll work, or oh, that won't work, or here's a problem with that, because I can read it. Like you said, I may not be able to write it because I have to be very, very specific, but I can read it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if you know the foundation, it should probably be very, very helpful.
Yeah, this reminds me of when I was one of my last, I think it was actually my last semester teaching. I was, with all the hype was going around, I was thinking, like, man, wouldn't it be cool too if there was like an educational product that was basically an AI product that could just replace me in a sense as a professor, just to teach? Because honestly, that's the way I was learning too. Was like I was just go asking questions and kind of learning from the AI, and having good, really, really good experience with it. And then thinking back to my students, I talked to my students about this. Like, would you be interested? Like, it definitely was a much cheaper service, like than you'd pay for a college course, but you get the basic exact same information you get in a college course with good examples and also good feedback. But it was all built around AI. Would you be interested in it? And most of them said no. And it didn't hit me before the fact of like why they're saying no, because I think one student even phrased it well. It's like, I wouldn't know the right questions to ask. So if you don't have a good base, like you're talking about, a good base, a good context, you don't know the right questions to ask to enable yourself to learn a complex topic.
That's super interesting, because like I did a quick presentation, and like my understanding of AI is not nearly those, like the researchers that work on this and people that build neural networks and understand how they work, right? I mean, maybe I should not say understand how they work, because I'm not sure that we do understand how they work. That's different.
I don't think they understand how they work. From what I'm reading here, I don't know.
yeah. It's like we know it works. It's a little puzzling as to how, but math is math, and like we keep telling to math differently until we get the results we want.
It's kind of like quantum computing, right? So you got two opposite answers mean this, or what is it? It's two answers that mean the same. No, what is it?
I don't know.
Something can be yes and no at the same time.
Right. I forget what that is.
True or false at the same time, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I did a quick presentation to a bunch of homeschool parents about the use of AI in education, right? And trying to demystify, because if we don't make it seem as magical, and I mean, it dumbs it down a lot to say it's predictive text, but that's what it is. It's predictive text with a crap ton of context, right? Like in a whole lot of understanding of relationship, and the predictive model is super big because we have the computing power now to do it. But in the end, it's like, well, that's probably what the next word would be. It's guessing.
Yeah. Words are concepts of tokens, those tokens of values.
Right. Basically. And our next step, though, in how we're trying to improve this is those reasoning models that use self-reflection to basically reprompt it with the idea of, give me the steps that would be needed to solve this. And I don't know, that's just what came to mind when you said the students talking about how they wouldn't know what questions to ask. The reasoning models and some of the output that you see in the chain of thought, that could be helpful in that context. Because if you ask the very, very general question, how do I build this thing? And then you see the chain of thought prompts where the model is basically prompting itself to ask a bunch of questions. That, like, if we could harness that a little bit to your education concept of almost saying, here are the questions you should ask, and here is how you might think about it based on patterns of how we've thought about things in the past, which is really what it's doing. So,
well, that's what I think. I think eventually it'll get there too, because I think it has to, and that's what I think. I was thinking about an educational product around this, where like if you had like a, if you were trying to teach programming and you say, okay, you would have like a prescribed lesson that the programmer AI would use, but then you would then it had that reflection built in. So based on the questions that are asked and based on the content that already knows about, like a lesson plan, right?
Yeah.
And how those questions fit within the lesson plan they're trying to teach, it'll get there. Like it makes sense. It has to.
Yeah, and I think you could accomplish that not so much by saying, "Hey, what if you could just use ChatGPT instead of me?" Which may be how the students understand that question,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
To be like, no, what if you could use, teach GPT instead of me, where it did exactly those things. Where somebody else was prompted, it was giving it those seed prompts that would be required to create the content that then would be useful. So yeah, that's a super interesting concept.
And then going back to being a student, would students even want to do that now that the tools are so easy just to give you the solution? Would you even care about how the solution was derived? I don't know, because people are lazy. So I don't know.
People are lazy, but like if you don't know how it happened, then you don't know what's going on. You know what I mean?
Know.
It's that thing of like, you can't apply it then generally if you don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And the tools, and that's what came up too in that talk I did for the homeschool parents. It's like if kids are going to try to use tools like this to get by the work, I mean, they could do that before. You could go out and you could find predefined essays on the internet. Was it easier to catch those? Maybe were there tools out that made it easier to catch existing, like just blatant plagiarism? And now it's harder because of these tools. Yeah, probably. But the fundamental thing is like, why is there why are you in a context, especially in the higher ed, right? Like, what have we broken that someone is going to pay to learn something and then intentionally not learn it? How broken is that system?
Yeah. Well, if you're a college professor, you've seen a lot of students who are just there because their parents made them go there. So
yeah, well, that's it. Yeah. So, but still, what's broken with that system? Like that's the thing. Is like how poor of a job have we done as salespeople in selling the idea that this is important, right? Because that's basically it. How for some reason it's important, at least we think it's important, but we've not been able to convince other people of that. Yeah. So I think that's the question is not technology there. The question is something else. So
it's more aptitude too. Should they even be doing it in the first place?
Oh, from a pro. What are we talking about here? Like,
well, no, should really people be pro or whatever? What profession you're gonna choose?
Right.
Are you just doing that because somebody told you to do that, or are you doing that because you really have a strong desire to do that?
Right. Do you want to apply yourself to that? Yeah. There's a. That's. I think that's far more than we can get to in the last 30 seconds of this podcast. So, I don't know. Is that a topic for a future podcast?
I think it may be.
Yeah. All right. So what about you? Got a lot of meetings today, Mark?
No, I got a big project I got to finish by the end of next week. So like I'm gonna be
heads down.
Heads down.
I mean, you're not. Let's be honest. You're not going to be coding.
Could be asking questions.
You're going to be asking AI to code for you. Let's be honest. We'll see how Mark's project goes next week.
Yep.
Was that bumper a little better?
Yeah, that was better.
Okay, I guess I'm trying to figure out where I need to have it on the.
Yeah, I could actually hear myself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. All right.
So what's the the length of this RV? How big is this?
35.5 feet, I think.
30 feet. That's substantial, Tim.
It's
a beefy.
Yeah, it's a little,
are you gonna have a trailer on that too?
No, that is the trailer. I told this behind my van.
Oh, so this is okay. So wait, show me. You can't really show you. Send me a picture. Let me see we need to have some way to share some like.
Look up a 20.
Share your screen. Or do that.
14.
Bring up a picture and then share your screen so I can see a picture of it. Some more context for myself.
Give me 1 second. I'll find it.
Because I was envisioning like an RV that you wouldn't pull, but I think you said at the beginning that you'd be pulling it, but.
Oh yeah, it's not. I can't get it on the site that I had before because I basically bought it, so it's gone. Let me see if I can find this. This guy. Yeah,
this brings up an interesting question because you want to. So is for your purposes, it's better to get one the pool rather than get one that's all.
Oh, for mine, yes.
All one. What's the word? Not one unit, but
that'd be a class A, like a drivable one.
Yeah, drivable one. Yeah.
Yeah, because for us it needs like a class C is a RV that is built on top of a bed, like of a truck bed.
Yeah.
And there's just not enough space in that for my family. So it'd have to be at least class A, which are those big like bus style RVs, which are ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
And the idea is like you're paying for
you can get one that's more space, but you pull it.
Yeah.
For sleep. It's okay. That makes sense.
So let me see if I can share. Can I share? There's got to be a way
you should be able to share screen. Yeah, you've done it before.
Yeah, share screen. This is great. I'm sure everybody who is watching the extended cut is super interested in this. So here's the specs. I think. Can you see it now?
I cannot. I just see you and us.
Oh, I thought I was sharing. Did I not share? Sharing.
Ooh, there's a share button. I'm sharing. Share screen.
I just said that. Oh, you know what? I need to. No, don't do that. Sorry, this is crazy. I had to move the screen to a different because I'm sharing the computer. Oh, so I have to do this. Let's do that. Now
there
you
go.
See it, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Learning the stream. All right. So now when I do that,
okay. So it's a full.
So I can see it.
It's also one that doesn't lay. I've seen ones that like kind of lay over the bed of the truck as you.
Like that'd be a fifth wheel. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to pull that with the van. I'd need a new truck for that.
Yeah.
So that's that, and you can see here. Oh yeah, that's what I want. An ad on my restream. Let's stop that, guys. What in the world? Skip the ad. I don't even know what we're trying to play here. Skip it. Who cares? Whatever. So can I ambiguify this?
Show bigify. There you go.
Skip the ad. I don't want the ad. I don't even.
So you
know
still
what
have to
this
convert.
Is trying to tell me.
So sleeping. I'm checking. So I'm trying to figure out. So sleeping. 6 beds?
So yeah,
bunks,
it's
there's
got
a set of bunks there.
So yeah, you've got 1, 2
futon there at the bottom.
Technically, but these futons fold out.
So
they actually can once you pull these 2 slide outs out. I don't know. Can you see my mouse?
Yeah, I can see your mouse move. Yeah.
How many ads is this going to throw in front of me? This is ridiculous. Just go. Okay. What in the world?
Oh, there's
not
a
a sponsor. I'll say not a sponsor. Yeah. This is the master.
In the front there. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, there's the master, and then you got 2 slide outs here. So you got top bunks, and then these futons actually spread out. So you've got 4 that you have down here. So it is 6. It's technically 6 bunks because you're sleeping side by side down here. But this room, the thing that this room is the bedroom, and it has a door on it. So unlike other floor plans where there's like they tuck in some bunks as part of the main cabin, this. Are you serious? How many ads is this stupid thing to show? This at least isolates it to like this is where we sleep in the bunk room. And everything else is we can come out there and eat and like you can actually get ready and put all your stuff up while we're making breakfast, as opposed to be like, all right, everybody get off of the couch and get off the dinette.
So when you're parked, what we're seeing here in the diagram, is that push out from the sides? So
yes.
Park
these guys
and the kitchenette dinette pushes out too.
Yep.
I got it. Cool. That's good.
Yeah. So when these both come in, like there's barely a hall to get through here. So, and I don't know, it doesn't seem like they have any other.
I always thought that was cool about RVs. They all feel like they transformed. That's cool.
Yeah, that's not the same one that they have for sale there. So, yeah. So let's see. Stop share. Take that back.
Yeah.
All right. Look at that.
I was going through my life transition, which sounds kind of weird because I was not a female before. But you know what I mean. Not to go into details.
Yes.
I got into YouTube channels with people who would convert those the vans.
Hashtag van life.
The van life stuff. And I was like, honestly, I was going through a point in my life where like, man, if I didn't have kids, I would probably be doing this. I'd probably be buying a van and I'd be traveling around the US and still doing my job, because I could do this benefit of doing our job. We could do it from anywhere. But that was part of that kind of seemed attractive to me, just because I pretty much gave up almost everything that I had. I was start over. So I was like, yeah, I can fit everything I have in a van. Well, maybe not everything, but like I could definitely see myself kind of trimming down to the point of just having a nice computer, few pieces of clothes, and a nice kind of pimped out van and drive around. That was going to seem fun to me.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't do it because of my kids. But
I could see. I've had similar thoughts. It's like, if I was, because I see like single developers, and I'm like, man, you could save up a whole lot of money, because I know what our industry makes, right? Like you could save up a whole lot of money if you were living in your car, essentially, which is van life. I mean, it's not like that. You get a nice Sprinter that has the high ceilings, so you can actually walk around in there. Or honestly, you just get a little travel trailer, like not that size, but just like a little one where you can carve out a bit of a room for your office, and the rest, park it wherever you want to park it. Go to work from you get Starlink now.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, because I have family across the U.S., so like it'd be kind of fun to like just go out to I have family in Colorado, Kansas, Arizona. Like it'd be kind of fun, just do a circle and just kind of visit around family and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Maybe when I retire, I don't know. We'll see if I'm still alone. We'll see.
I mean, I don't know that we'll ever do it, but like the retirement plan that I joke about is open up a food truck.
Oh, okay.
Just to travel, go to different places, and like cook. Open up. We'll be here for 2 days in this city and just make some money. And
now
then
you have the RV.
Else.
All you need is you just need one of your kids to grow up to be able to. Well, you have one kid who's your daughter who's learning how to drive.
Yeah, I've got one kid that drives, and yeah.
So you got one kid's already ready to drive. They could drive. You could drive the food truck. They could drive the truck, and there you go.
That's what we could do now.
A traveling family.
I don't know. I'm not feeling it yet. I feel like this is a retirement thing, not a now thing. But yeah. I
can see you doing that.
All right. Well, the YouTube viewers they got a bit of an extra this time, didn't they? All right.
Well, I hope hope the pickup goes well today.
Yeah, we're still getting the hitch all worked out, because there's funky things. Like it's not just like a hitch that goes on the back of. I mean, it is, but then they have these things called weight distribution bars, which do some weird physics stuff to keep the weight kind of straight. It's I don't know. I'd love to I'm sure it would be an interesting thing to see the physics behind how a weight distribution or sway bar works on a trailer. But we're trying to I guess the one that I had from the old trailer, it's taking a little bit more time to go on the new one. So I got a voicemail. It looks like it might not be right now that I go out. I might have to head out a little bit, but we'll see. So,
all right. Yeah, and I saw your note too about I get the other recording for last. I do have that. I put it in my Dropbox. I just probably did not put it in the shared folder, so I'll do that.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I've got. Oh, I also have. I have the last 2 of last year's up now. So if you want to.
Oh, okay.
I think I pushed that.
I can build
and
that.
then I will get the. Then we have 2 this year, but I was waiting to get that one because I didn't want to release last week's without the, or not last week's, but the last one without the previous one, because that then people get confused. They'd be like,
Man.
episode 92 came out before episode 91.
Honestly,
like,
the way we do things, I don't think people would be confused. Be like, all right, whatever. The 5 listeners we have, yeah.
Is that what it is? Have you even checked? You've never checked, have you?
No, it's fun. I'll tell you a story. We'll stay live with this. Fun.
Yeah.
I started. It happened about 5 months ago. I was dating a girl casually. And it was funny. She looked me up online. Yeah, because
no.
And she found out that I was on
our podcast.
Yep.
No.
And she was raving about it. Like she loved. Like I was like, and she's like she was a former lawyer, curtain nurse, and I was like, but she dug it. She liked to have the conversations like that. I was like, oh, well, that's at least makes me feel a little bit good. So yeah.
There you go. All right. So there's at least one listener.
Yeah.
All right. So there's that.
But I don't know if she still listens. I'm not dating her, so I don't know. All right.
My kids occasionally listen. They're like, Dad, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I was like, well, yeah, probably. I don't know that anybody has no idea what we're talking about. So let's be honest.
Hey, there are probably a few older Gen X developers. You're Gen X too, right?
No, I'm not.
You're not. You missed the because I'm cusp Gen X, right on the edge, I think, of 77, whereas right, and then yes, you're not.
No, I depending on how you cut the generational lines, I'm in what they call the gap. So they don't. I mean,
I was always on the edge.
Yeah. They missed me. Some people would put me in a millennial, but I kind of reject that concept.
You gotta stay far away from that.
But I like my age is like right there at the start. If you like, depending on where you put the line,
you're like a senior millennial.
Yeah. Well, it's weird too, because I feel like how do we even get onto this? I feel like one of the defining factors of millennials is that a lot of the technology we have, they never knew it not existing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. Like the idea there's always been cell phones. There's always been email. There's always been those things.
Yeah.
And I don't identify with that because I grew up watching them happen.
Yeah.
I remember when people were talking about email addresses, they're like, they sent mail back and forth like 3 messages in a day. It was like letters, but they can send them. It's like, how does this even work? This is fascinating. This was as a kid. So I remember those things coming around. Whereas like my brother, who's 5 years younger than me, he's definitely most of this technology existed as he was old enough to understand technology. Right. Like I remember going to some campground once and they had a rotary phone and he's like, what is this? But I mean, I knew what a rotary phone, like it's weird, like just what a 5-year difference does in our understanding of technology and how fast we got, like old technology became deprecated.
Yeah. We lived through that. We only missed like the 70s when they really started.
Yeah.
It kind of got burst from around the 70s, but yeah, we basically seen everything that was just kind of crazy. Think about.
Yeah. So. All right.
Take